welcome back to my channel. I'll define myself. My name is Tari, and today this video is going to be a little different. The last video I did was a wig review, and as you can see, I am still currently sitting at my altar space right now. I have a lot going on, and I was just sitting, meditating, praying, and there were essentially just some things that fell on my mental that I wanted to share with the collective. So I also want my channel to be a very healthy space for the spirit. So not only will I be doing wig reviews, but spirituality, spiritual practices, healthy coping mechanisms are also things that I'm very super passionate about. So there was just some food for thought for the spirit, the spiritual space that I wanted to share with you all. So I have been reading this book, Inward by Young Pueblo, and it is a series, a collection of poems about pretty much diving and going inward. So I think I will be doing a series of videos centered on some of the poems that really are standing out to me in this book, and that just could be good for self-awareness, overall self-awareness, healing, growth, and just posing questions like when it comes to certain things, like things you don't maybe necessarily think about, but just food for thought. I think self-reflection is a huge important component of spirituality, being able to reflect, to go inward, but also to be honest with yourself in the process, because it does absolutely nothing for you to reflect if you are not coming from an honest lens and perspective when it comes to any insight that you may come across. So a poem that stood out to me, or a part of one of the poems in the book, and again, it's entitled Inward by Young Pueblo, but in one of the poems, it mentions a part that really resonated with me that I wanted to share with you guys. It states, "The mind is full of shadows, but shadows cannot withstand the patience and perseverance of light. Our minds can become like stars, powerful, united fields of pure light. But unlike a star, the healed mind will dwell in awareness and wisdom." I thought that that was very powerful, because if you break it down, it starts off with the shadow side. Now, I feel that we as people, we have a shadow and a light whenever we are interacting with people. Just when it comes to ourselves, there is a shadow side of self, there's a light side of self. I think some people equate the lighter side to good and the shadow side to bad, but it's not that way at all, honestly. If you were thinking about it from a spiritual perspective, the shadow side is just that side that may deal with certain characteristics, that may deal with fears that maybe aren't necessarily so pleasant, but they are just sides of yourself that maybe, you don't necessarily really care for, but if you learn to work with that shadow side, it's literally all about a balance, because sometimes it is part of the shadow side that you take note of that makes you more aware as a person and who you are as an individual and how you handle certain circumstances. So knowing that shadow side, accepting that shadow side, and embracing that shadow side is a huge part of embracing you and your whole, complete, authentic self. If you were just being completely honest with yourself on your spiritual journey and really being self-aware. So shadow side does not equate to a bad side at all. And it's definitely something that we as people all should dive into. And I feel like our minds can really internalize and fixate on a lot of the shadow parts of self, especially in a negative way, if you are not really sitting with those feelings, sitting with that shadow, and allowing yourself to really work through some of those things, which takes time. Healing is not an easy thing to do. It is something that takes work, it takes commitment, it is ugly, it's not pretty. Um, and it takes patience, it takes time. So extend some grace to yourself if you decide to tackle this and to really do some shadow work, unpacking those parts of self, triggers, childhood trauma, characteristics of yourself that maybe aren't, you know, always the best, or you were displayed in like a certain light or the best light, but they're parts that make you you. And you are important at the end of the day. You are valuable and you have so much to give to this world. Like you are light, you are love, and you are loved. And that is something that we as people need to be reminded of all the time. And as I'm talking to you, I'm also talking to myself. Um, so it really resonated with me, that part of the poem, because I know that sometimes I personally struggle with the mind being inundated with shadow, which sometimes can equate to fear, doubt, negative thoughts. And when I tell you, the mind can be a powerful thing depending upon how much energy you put into the thought. So it is not the thoughts themselves. We are all going to have certain thoughts and they may not always be the best sometimes, but it's the energy that you give those thoughts that make all the difference in the world. So if you are feeding certain thoughts, that are not positive, and a lot of the time fear will latch on to our triggers, it will latch on to the shadow parts of self and, create doubt. And then next thing you know, we're like, oh, this will never happen to us, or I can't, how can something like this possibly happen to me? How can I have this YouTube channel and, people actually like log on and see the video and like the video, like who am I to do something like this, which is in full transparency and vulnerability, which I love because there's power in it. Don't let anyone tell you different. Um, I even struggled with those thoughts, before deciding I was going to start posting things like this on my YouTube channel. Worried about, comparing myself to people who have been doing this, am I going to have the personality? Am I going to be a good fit? Then I realized at the end of the day, like, I am doing this because I know what my spiritual journey has been like, who I used to be, where I used to be, and where I am now. And this was definitely and still is a very important aspect of spirituality and things that I like to include in my craft when I am, using my oracle cards, when I am making my infused oils, um, learning about different herbs to promote healing, and healthy holistic lifestyles and just all of that stuff, which is definitely a work in progress for me, as I speak. But again, I'm definitely not where I used to be. But one of the key things, that I really appreciated about this is that, young Pueblo starts off with saying, like, the mind is full of shadows, but shadows cannot withstand the patience and perseverance of light, which is so beautiful because light is just love. It's love. Like, it is love, and it is that simple. Now, people have different ideas of what love is and what love looks like, and that is going to vary, but just know that love is not toxic. Love is not going to make you feel less than. Love is not going to be manipulative. You know, love is not going to feel like is not going to make you feel like you have to self-sacrifice. There's a difference between compromise and there's a difference between self-sacrificing. But love is healthy. Love is pure. Love makes you feel hopeful. Love is peace. Um, and love is infectious, and it is the purest forms of who we are as individuals, without the fear, without the doubt, without the shadow side of self just taking over and running rampant. Love is who we are at our purest forms when we allow ourselves to be and to appreciate one another as spiritual beings having a human experience. Um, so, food for thought for today is, what kind of thoughts are you feeding? What kind of words are you saying? Which words are a powerful thing. I truly believe in the power of manifestation and that we have the ability to co create and manifest the desires of our heart. But we have to be intentional about those things. We have to recreate and redefine what that looks like for us. Um, and we have to be patient with ourselves in the process and do the work, because doing the work is necessary. But ultimately, the shadow side of self never goes away. I'm going to keep it real with you. It never goes away. But when it happens, you are better equipped to navigate those spaces and to navigate certain situations and circumstances. So I encourage everyone this week to move forward and try to be mindful of your thoughts, primarily the thoughts that you are feeding. Are you feeding the negative thoughts more so than the positive thoughts? But also, too, to remember that every part of you is beautiful. Every part of you is amazing. Is it necessarily always, the best parts of you? No, not so much. When I get overly emotional and frustrated, I tend to yell. It's not the best part of myself. And in all honesty, it's probably not going to go away. But I can be actively mindful and knowing what my triggers are when it comes to that, and try to come up with some better coping strategies and mechanisms to calm my emotions, some better practices so that I don't get so overwhelmed. So, food for thought this week: what kind of thoughts are you feeding, positive and or negative? Embracing the light along with the shadow, because embracing the shadow is just as important as embracing the light. Working, what does balance look like with balancing the light and the shadow side of self? But also to remembering that love, in this very cliche way, like, and I'm a corny person, but if I believe in nothing else, I do believe that love conquers all. And I believe that we are all love, and we are loved, and we are light. And we get to choose to be that every day and to see life from that perspective and to see it within ourselves and to know that we are enough. You are enough. You are love if no one has showed you today. And no, you're not perfect, just like I'm not perfect. But there were no mistakes made when we were created. Right now, in this moment, who I am is who I'm meant to be. We grow and we evolve. And that's that. So I encourage you all to love your shadow, to embrace that, and to do something for some self-care this week. Okay? Until next time. Bye.